Hello, hello, and welcome to the Say Yes Movement podcast. Hey, Heather, how are you doing today?
I'm doing awesome, John. How about yourself? It's Celebration Fridays. This is my favorite day of the
It's
week.
it is. I love Celebration Fridays. It's an opportunity to really reflect back on the week, but also to celebrate those little wins that we've had, big or small. It doesn't matter. The whole goal is just to celebrate. And when we celebrate, when we've heard from people, when they celebrate, it's like, oh, yeah, I haven't like I spoke with somebody recently, and they're like, I haven't celebrated my team's success in 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Like it just blew me away. Like so. It's great that we get to do this every Friday. So, what are you celebrating today, Heather?
I'm part of this mastermind group, and we do what we call 6 week sprints. So we create a goal, and then for 6 weeks we connect very quickly, 15 minutes, like quick updates to everyone. And then at the 6 week mark, we meet again. So yesterday was one of our check-in calls, and everyone was crushing their goals, like crushing. Like
Wow.
my peers was like, I am now ahead, and my team got all energized and excited, and they're now doing even more. So what happened 6 weeks ago is we create these goals. We don't know how we're going to do them. We know that they need to get done for our business to move forward, and we actually choose goals that we might need a little bit of nudging or help along the way. So you don't pick the goals that are going to be easy for you, because this group is there to support you. And so to just hear everyone celebrate their goals and then hear how it's cascading to the team was fantastic. And these 6 week sprints are perfect bite-sized pieces of time, because often, if it's left to me, I'll change my own due date, because it's only me that's holding me accountable. But John, when I make a commitment to you, I never asked you. Well, that's not true. I do ask sometimes to move the due date, but it's very, very rare, because I've made and I'm much more accountable to someone else. And I think that's a big aha moment, that who are you helping be accountable, and who's helping you be accountable. And of course, I got to share my updates, and that was a great celebration too, because I've moved some things forward that are in my goal wheelhouse. So it's been a really energized week. So I don't know. What about you, John?
Yeah, I know. I love it. I love it. Same with me. So, I've been part of a group as well, and we've been focusing on these little goals that we've been working on. Not 6 weeks, 4 week sprints. And now that we're at the end of the month, we had an opportunity to sit down and reflect on them. And it's been great, just the reflection piece, because it gives you an opportunity to look at, what's gone well and what hasn't gone well, and what to change and approach, because tomorrow's April 1st, believe it or not.
I know.
So it's a good opportunity. And as we get to the end of Q1 as well, it's like, okay, now we're going into the second quarter of the year. It's like, oh, what do I need to do? What do I want to do? And what do I want to accomplish?
I
And who do
love
I want
that.
to impact? So I want to celebrate that we got to that. We got to the end of March, and there's a good feeling and vibration just around today. Like it's just something around this month. I know we're going into Easter next weekend, but it's just an opportunity just to celebrate, nicer weather. We're supposed to have like double digit weather tomorrow. Woohoo!
It,
So I would celebrate that.
I think that that's a really important thing, that sometimes we're waiting for something to happen, waiting for the good weather to come, or waiting for something to happen. And I'll tell you, last night, so I'm up at the cottage at Wasaga Beach. It's on Georgian Bay. It has the most spectacular sunsets in the universe. Like, it really, really does. I've been to other places in the world, and it's a beautiful thing. And here's the thing: a sunset happens every day, but I don't catch it every day. And last night we were watching the sun go down from the cottage, and it was cold out. It was quite cold out. It was quite windy. And I'm like, no, we're just gonna watch it from the window. And my husband said, no, 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 get your jacket on, get your boots on. We're going down to the lake. And I was kind of like, I can see it from the window. And I'm so glad that I didn't go for comfort and I went for beauty instead. And it was spectacular. And I posted the pictures on Facebook. And it's just, what are those things that we're waiting for? We're waiting for what good weather to come. We're waiting for something to happen. Don't wait. You're living your life today. And that's why I love sunrises and sunsets, because they happen every day, and they sort of bookmark, did you live your best life today? And
Yeah.
so I wanted to share that, because it's another celebration moment for me, just to see the beauty in everything around you, even when it's really, really cold, because it was really cold. We still got to get out there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's funny. I that's awesome. You got to go out. You got to go out there and just experience it, right? And actually, I did a TikTok on this, I think 2 days ago. It's really around, experiencing life every day. YOLO. Like I talked about YOLO and how I don't like YOLO because YOLO says you only live once. The truth is, you get to live every day. You only die once, but you get to live every single day. You get to start from scratch every single day if you really wanted to, or continue to build something on whatever you're building. So having that opportunity to step into how you stepped into being on the lakeshore, watching the sunrise or sunset, it's an incredible experience, and the truth
Mhm.
is we never know when it's going to be our last experience. So you might as well enjoy those moments. So be in those
Exactly.
moments, right?
Be in the
I
moment.
think
Be in the moment.
that's incredibly special. I know this week, and actually the one thing we've been focused on throughout the whole week has been communication. And you and I, we've had some pretty good offline discussions around communications on how communications can lead to misinterpretation, could lead sometimes to really bad places, conflicts, arguments, discussions, like bad discussions. So I want to continue down that theme today because I think it's incredibly important as we celebrate. And if you're listening in, listen, celebrations aren't just for us. And it's great that we get to share our celebrations with each other and with all of you. But we're going to invite you to celebrate with us as well. Drop it in the chat. What are you celebrating this week? If you're listening in, we'd love to know, what are you celebrating? What's that one little win that you want to share? If you don't want to share it publicly, you can share it with us privately in messages. If you're connected to us on LinkedIn or some other social network, but share. It's important to get it out. It's one thing to think it, and I know I used to do that, but when I started sharing it publicly, it just changes
Well,
everything.
and here's the other invitation that I'll add to yours, John. If you're thinking, it's not big enough, it's, other people have better shares, I don't know if this is what they're looking for, then that's what you're going to write.
Mm,
And that is just you playing small, and don't play small. Believe me, that thing that made you joyful, happy, got you out of your comfort zone, or you're celebrating other people around you being successful, is what brings you more joy, more love, more, confidence. So if you want to amp up your own leadership, this is how you do it. It's small little incremental changes, like having gratitude and celebration every day, but we do it at least once a week on our podcast to make sure that we honor it and show our audience that this is how it gets done. And sometimes we have small little goals that we celebrate, sometimes it's for other people, sometimes it's for ourselves, and it's all good stuff.
yeah, no, absolutely. Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. So going back, communication. We had some good giggles this week around miscommunications or meaning that we attach to things that come in, right? So, and I know we've seen this, right? We've seen this when we worked in the corporate environment. An email would come into us. We would look at the email, and then we would attach a whole bunch of different meanings to this email that we had no clue whether or not they were true. And we
I've
saw
talked
it
to
this week.
two clients this week I've talked to where they're filling in all the blanks. They're not sure what's going to happen. They're making up stories of what it possibly could be. And all of that energy, for what reason? Like you don't have enough information to make a decision about what's going to happen next. So, ask yourself, did I just make this about me?
Mm,
Did I just fill in the blanks? And what is that about? Is that about an insecurity that I have? Is that about missing information that I have? Is this about experiences from my past that I'm now pasting on this moment in time? And the answer is usually yes to one or all three of those answers, and a few
yeah.
more, of why we're creating these stories around us. And the way to get out of that is, take a step back, zoom out, look down at yourself having this moment, and think about, like, why are you having this moment? Why are you filling in these blanks? And I always do this. What's the worst thing that could happen? What's the best thing that could happen? And what's actually going to happen? And believe me, the worst and the best are really far on the two scales, but it usually turns out to be closer to the best, somewhere in the middle. The
Yeah.
worst hardly ever happens. And sometimes when the worst happens, it's actually the best. So, don't be scared of what's going to happen. Just focus on how you're going to react and be impacted by it.
Yeah. Well, I would even say don't give it any attention,
That's
right?
even, yeah.
So And I say that because, when I'm coaching people for interview prep, it's one of my favorite things, right? Because they always think about, well, what do they want to hear? Or the truth is, you have no idea what the person on the other side of the table wants to hear. You do know that, they want to understand your experience. They want to understand your knowledge in particular areas. There is job descriptions that you work through. You have to be able to answer those questions in terms of what's listed there, but you can never ever know what the other person's thinking. And actually, I did this. It's funny. I did this on. I was doing a talk for an association of what are they called? Purchase agreement professionals. So these are people that do the purchasing for these big companies. So I asked the question. I go, can anybody tell me what I'm thinking right now? And it was dead quiet in the audience. And then this one guy goes, I'm thinking that you're thinking what we're thinking. And I'm like, okay. Well, I'm like, that's a good try. The truth is, I wasn't thinking anything. And he's like, wow, that's what I was thinking you were thinking. I go, how do you know that? That was one person out of 500 people that actually stood up and said that. The truth is, we never know what other people are thinking.
We never know what other people are thinking. We also don't know what's driving that thought process. So I love the training example, John, and we've both been think of a horse. And, when you go around the room and you ask everyone to think of a horse, one horse is black, one horse is brown, one horse is white, one has wings. So, even though the concept of a horse should be the same, how that horse shows up in our mind's eye is completely different. And that's because it's part of our DNA, our experiences that drive that horse. Some it's a mythical creature, some it's a real horse, some it's a little baby horse. So, we think that we're all talking about a horse, and we are, but it's all kinds of different horses. And the same thing happens in communication, in the meaning that we put on things. So, don't assume that everyone around you is thinking the same thing as you are. The best way to uncover that is to be curious, ask more questions, get people to describe or say what they're feeling, what they're seeing in their mind's eye, and how that's making them feel.
Yeah. No, and a lot of, as you're using this horse example, I was thinking, a cartoon show from the 80s. There was a horse with wings. It was colored in a rainbow. I forget what the name of the show was, but My Little Pony. I think
My Little Pony.
My Little Pony. Oh my gosh, I'm kind of dating myself now. So we bring in. So you talked about horse, and that's what popped into my mind, and it's because of all the experiences that we've had in the past, right? Like we don't realize. The things that help us form our thoughts today are things that have happened to us many, many years ago. Mm-hmm. And you talked about a horse, I talked about Little Pony, and that's like the 80s. What is that, 30, 40 years ago? Wow, I can't believe the 80s, 40 years ago now. But, we keep, we talked about meaning earlier, but this is what we talk about meaning as well, right? So we see something, we interpret. Somebody sends an email and says, hey, it's urgent, I want to meet you. It's like, your whole head just kind of goes crazy. It's like, okay, what's urgent? Like, I don't know. Okay. So we start creating these stories too. You got to watch out when it comes to things and how you attach meaning to it. And the truth is, you're bringing your own personal experiences, your own personal behaviors, your thoughts into that. And my suggestion for people is just don't attach anything to it until you know all the facts. Right. And, as you sit there and you go through those conversations, you're thinking about it. It's like, well, I don't know anything. Or I could have a couple of hypotheses, and I think that's probably a better word in terms of what this could mean. But I'm not going to attach any meaning to it until I'm there. And think about how many fights and, arguments you could put to rest just by not thinking of them as fights or arguments. Right. Because we walk in, and that's, we talked about energy quite a bit. And you walk into these conversations with that energy. It's like, oh, they're angry at me, so I'm going to be angry back, right? And it's like, but wait a minute, what did you say? Because you attached the meaning to something that doesn't exist. So just be really cautious of that, right? And, you and I, we both do it. It just happens every once in a while. Something happens. It's like, oh, let's attach, whatever shows up for us. But if we just clear our minds and say, hey, I'm going to wait for all the facts until I make any sort of judgment or decision in terms of what's going to happen. Whew.
I love that really lands. And what else I'm remembering is, what are the resources that you have available so that you're bringing your best self to that situation? So in your example where you get an email, come to your boss's office and you're like, oh, like, I wonder what this is all about. How do you want to show up to your boss on a regular basis? You probably want to show up with confidence, with problem solving skills, and some other attributes. So step into and just think of actual situations where you were the best problem solver, and you were also the best composed person, and you were also confident, and you step into those moments in your past, and you actually like close your eyes for a moment, visualize your mind's eye what it feels like to be in that moment, adjust your body to match that, feel it in your body, hear the words and the sounds of your voice when you're that confident, that composed. And then when you're going to your boss's office, you just bring those resources with you. And now you've actually used your past as a tool to match what you're doing right then and there. And no matter what your boss is going to share with you, you're bringing those resources with you into that room. And so you have the capability to answer the questions that your boss is going to ask, talk to whatever's going to happen, and you're going to do it with confidence, with composure, and with problem solving skills, and therefore you're ready for anything that happens, and all the meaning can just disappear till you have more facts. And that is a process that is so powerful to get your mind and your body aligned with who you want to step into as a leader.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. I love that. I love that. Empower yourself before you go into those sessions. Because I remember working in the environment, in the corporate environment, and people would say, "Oh, my manager called me into their office," and they would be worried or concerned. It was like, "Oh man, where did I mess up?" Like that's what people automatically went to. I'm like, "Did you mess up anything?" They're like, "No." I go, "Then what are you worried about?" I'm like, just you're right. Step into that place, and I love it because it's one of these processes that we use in NLP where you state shift into something that's more empowering.
That's
And
right.
something like calmness. Let's just step into calmness. So when we show up, nobody's yelling, nobody's fighting, there's no raised tone in the conversation. It's just like, hey, what's going on? I saw your email. I'm here. What do you want to talk about? It's like, ooh. It brings a different type of energy. So here's a question, and I know you want to jump in. But before we do that,
go.
As a person sending that email, is there something that you could say different to put the person in that state?
I love that question. And maybe that's the call to action, although that feels like a Monday call to action, but it's something to think about over the weekend. And maybe the thing to think about is have you ever sent an email that had not enough information that maybe caused that anxiety in someone else? So, it comes from both sides, is what can we do to inform people more or prepare them for what's going to happen? Although I'll tell you, when, I was in the corporate world, I loved sending those emails and then just bombarding them with love and celebration to try to counteract it. But, maybe I was doing the wrong thing too, in that I was causing anxiety before I was causing, a celebration moment, just to be playful. And maybe that wasn't very playful. I don't know. I'd have to ask the people that I did that to, but I'm actually reflecting, did I do this sometimes? And the answer is always yes, because as humans, we're not always effective communicators, and I can't even understand what the other person is interpreting because we don't live their life. We don't have their experiences. So I think that's a really good awareness piece for this weekend to, journal about, think about, and then, come Monday morning, what's the new type of email that you'll send that has more information that will help people not create that meaning for them? And that's really, really important. And it can be in a verbal conversation too, but most of the time this happens in an email format or a text message.
Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah. No, as you're saying all these things, I'm stepping back into the day where like, hey, can you come into my office for a second? I'm like, there's nothing wrong. It's almost like you have to say, there's nothing wrong. I want to chat. I'm looking for an update on something. And they'd be like, oh, okay, no problem. Okay.
Exactly.
So yeah, I know. So I love that reflection exercise. And it's not just in the work environment. It's also at home too, right? Like, when you're talking to your kids, it's like, when you say certain things, they think they're in trouble. So maybe there's a different way of delivering that message as well.
Ooh,
So
I love that.
I love that exercise. Step into comments. Oh, thank you, Brian. That's awesome. I'm so happy that we got to talk about this. So celebrate. I know we celebrated, but take a moment today, and it only takes a minute or two. Celebrate with somebody around you, whether it's your team member, whether it's your family. I like to do it at dinner on Fridays. We talk about our celebrations for the week, and it's a great, it's a great opportunity just to, connect, and then think about how you're communicating as well. Is there something that you could be doing differently? All right, I can't believe we're at time. Thank you, Heather. That was a great discussion. I love the communication. We've been focused on that all week. If you want to check out our past episodes where we've been talking about poop emojis and some other communication tools that you could be using this week to be more effective next week, we'd love for you to check that out. We'll include a link to the podcast below. And with that, thank you. And remember, when you shift your mindset, you shift your life. Have an awesome Friday, everybody. Take care.